So what does the US think of Bill Shorten? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Heiser Says. I've got my stein of coffee, and I thought we'd read through a recent Wikileaks release from the Public Library of US Diplomacy there. And this is a communique from the Melbourne Consulate of the United States to their Canberra ambassador about a meeting with Bill Shorten. And this occurred in 2009. So, just when he was starting his ambitious climb. I mean, does anyone actually like Bill Shorten? Does anyone like him? Even on the left, does anyone like him? I don't understand. And I'm before I read into this, I was talking to Rachel about it. Who would they get to replace him? If they lose, would we get Plibisek as PM? So maybe we need to let Shorten win. Oh, someone who campaigns about the wage gap. Could you imagine that as our prime minister? That's horrific. So I'll just zoom in here so I can make sure you can see it all. Let's have a look here. So this was dated the 2009, June 12th, 508. Oh, and if you're not familiar, if you've been living under a rock, WikiLeaks has never been disproven. It's a reputable source, all of the information they get. So it's quite impressive. So let's go through here. And it was, this is just showing you all of the information here. Handler restrictions, not assigned. Executive orders, not assigned. Tags, Australian, political government affairs, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So, Melbourne, 52. Classified by Justin L. Colbeck for reasons 1.4 BD. Just that sentence just encapsulates a whole world of bureaucracy there. I imagine you could really that little clause you could pull apart, find all this weird legislation. Summary 1. Consul General met with Melbourne-based Member of Parliament Bill Shorten, Australia's Parliamentary Secretary for Disabilities and Victorian Bushfire Reconstruction. Remember, this was in 2009. Widely touted as a future Prime Minister, we provide bio notes on this young, ambitious parliamentarian. End summary. Number 2. Born on May 12, 1967, Shorten makes no bones about his ambitions in federal politics. During a June 11 meeting, Shorten told Consul General that he did not take this job to stand still. So he's ambitious. He explained that he had been overlooked for promotion in Prime Minister Rudd's June 6 cabinet reshuffle, reference A, in order to keep the geographic balance in the cabinet members between Victoria and New South Wales. So, adding a bit of commentary here, I wonder if this has anything to do with his, backstabbing of Rudd or removal of Rudd. What do you think? So I'm getting a very Machiavellian vibe from Shorten. Comment. Despite words to the contrary, Shorten appeared disappointed while he was discussing this topic. End comment. According to Shorten, 10 of the 30 cabinet positions are held by Victorians, and the 2 recent vacancies came from New South Wales, which required the Prime Minister to promote New South Welshmen Chris Bowen and Jason Clare. Number 3. Shorten said that he's deeply influenced by Martin Luther King Jr. and quoted from several of his speeches in our meeting with him. Doesn't that just seem a bit, pandering to his American overlords? While National Secretary of the powerful Australian Workers' Union, he spent time in the United States collaborating with the United Steel Workers' Union. His successor, Paul Howes, has since carried this relationship forward. Along with Senator Stephen Conroy, he leads the Victorian wing of the Australian Labor Party's ALP right-leaning faction formerly known as Labor United. So Labor has a right-leaning faction. Could you imagine how terrifying their left-leaning... Oh, wait, sorry, no. Their left-leaning faction's called the Greens, of course. Now, He's widely known for his pro-US stance. I wonder if that still exists. Now that we've got Trump in charge of the US, I wonder if he still has a pro-US stance. Number 4, Bill Shorten is part of a new generation of articulate young Labour union leaders, which includes South Australian MP Mark Butler and Victorian MP Richard Marles, who were both promoted to parliamentary secretaries in the June 6 reshuffle. Shorten was highly critical, however, of current Australian union leadership, saying that there have been insufficient efforts on grooming the next generation of leaders. He has an MBA from Melbourne University, was close to the late packaging mongrel Richard Pratt, and said that in comparison to other union leaders, he is willing to listen to business concerns. I don't seem to see that in his run for Parliament, do you? Number 5. A long-time member of the ALP, William Bill Richard Shorten, was elected to Australia's House of Representatives during the November 24, 2007 federal election. His rapid rise through the Labour Union movement to become National Secretary of the Australian Workers' Union in 2001 led many political observers to tout him as a possible ALP star and to predict a front bench ministry for him in the Rudd government. The Prime Minister, however, made public comments highlighting the importance of parliamentary experience and awarded Shorten the mini-ministry of Parliamentary Secretary for Disabilities and Children's Services. Following the devastating Victorian bushfires of February 2009, Rudd promoted Shorten by giving him the additional responsibility for bushfire reconstruction. So Rudd was obviously trying to keep him placated, and Shorty would have none of it, would he? We've seen what's happened. It's like a Game of Thrones, really. I wonder if they could make us an episode about that. Just without, you don't want to see politicians having sex. Honestly, they're not very attractive. Nonetheless, anti-federalists' approach to bushfire reconstruction. 6. Although he is a senior federal politician responsible for Australia's bushfire reconstruction efforts, Shorten said he preferred to leave firefighting and much of the reconstruction efforts to the states. Oh, so he didn't take the job seriously. The federal government already has plenty of duties, he said, and he did not want to see additional power delegated to the federal level as a result of the Royal Commission into the 2009 fires. Note, the findings from the Royal Commission will be published in August and the Post will report separate. I'm assuming that Septel on the conclusions. End note. Okay, so could someone explain to me what that word means if you've got a familiarity with international communications? Shorten noted, or maybe that's the name of the thing, sorry. Shorten noted there would likely be changes to Australia's National Fire Warning Service and that the leave early or stay and fight policy will face continued scrutiny. Comment. 7. Shorten, who is somewhat rumpled in appearance. Rumpled in appearance. Do we want someone who's rumpled in appearance to be our leader? Anyway. Prefers to get down to business quickly in meetings. He is a nimble conversationalist who understands nuance. In addition to being cautious, considered, and thoughtful, he is able to skillfully steer away from topics he prefers to avoid. Recently, separated from his former wife, Debbie Bale, Shorten is reportedly in a relationship with Governor-General Quintin Bryce's daughter, Chloe. He admitted that he is still getting his feet wet in Parliament and that things there are more complicated than he thought. So he couldn't run it like a union then. Despite his lukewarm relationship with Prime Minister Rudd, there you go, he sided with Kim Beazley in the 2006 ALP leadership ballot. Shorten struck us as highly ambitious, but willing to wait, at least for a while, for his moment in the sun. Okay, so this was a communique sent from Melbourne to the Canberra embassy, I think. I saw that somewhere. Where did I see that? To Canberra, Australia, Sydney, and Perth, and the Secretary of State. So there you go. It was a telegram. I wonder if that's actually a telegram or if it was an email. I wonder. So guys, what do you think? Does this give you any insight into Shorten? I wonder. Let's have a look at one more thing. And you have to remember what we're going to look at. I'll transition here. This is footage from Bill Shorten as he's, going through a facility and he's approaching some work. It's what happens. Now, this is the leader of the Labor Party. Nope, don't want to shake your hand. Nope, don't want to shake your hand. Okay, so they didn't like him. And we've had another instance. And this occurred, this is from the Courier Mail. So, we'll zoom in here a bit. Workers who put Shorten on spot over tax cuts suspended. Okay, so let's have a look at this article. The Gladstone Ports worker who tripped up Bill Shorten on Labor's tax plan for high-income earners has been suspended and forced to find another job. The gutted 49-year-old was told he was in breach for speaking to the media when filmed questioning Mr. Shorten at the Queensland government-owned Gladstone Ports Corporation, saying it would be good to see higher wage earners given a tax break. Okay, I can understand why these organizations have rules in place to restrict them, particularly when this is different to Fallujah. This is different to Israel. This is at work in interview, but then the politicians coming in, that's sort of to be expected, that people will ask him questions. And you really aren't talking to the media when you're asking a third party a question. They just have to be filming it. The next day, the father of three's pass did not work, and he was officially told he was suspended. Last week, his desk was packed up and delivered to his house. Bloody hell. The experienced electrical engineer has unintentionally become a victim of the cut and thrust of a high-stakes election campaign, which will be decided by a handful of marginal seats, including Flynn, which includes Gladstone. Events unfolded at the port on April 23rd, when the worker made his off-the-cuff comment to Mr. Shorten, who had approached him. So Shorten approached him and he asked him a question. Come on, guys. The business needs to have a bit of understanding there. But, these big corporations, they don't give a crap. You're just another cog. You're replaceable. The worker, who had earned about $250,000 last financial year, forgot his lunch that day and got caught up in the media scrum during a free barbecue. So he's going for a free barbie and it cost him his job. Oh, bloody hell. I broke something there. Bloody hell. I feel sorry for him. I really do. In response, Mr. Shorten replied, "We're going to look at that." You know what that means when politicians tell you that. Sparking a political pylon with the coalition accusing the opposition leader of deliberately misleading the man. Given Labor has a levy on high-income earners, it became a flashpoint in the campaign. The Gladstone resident refused to comment over fears about finding full-time work. It is understood he was shocked when told of his suspension, saying he had not spoken to any media, he'd only been filmed asking Mr. Shorten a question. Yeah, I know. It seems fair, doesn't it? And notice how, going back to the communique there, going right back there to how they paint him. Here we go. Look here, where they say, he is a nimble conversationalist who understands nuance. In addition to being cautious, considered, and thoughtful, he is able to skillfully steer away from topics he would prefer to avoid. So that's what he's done here. He's deployed the skills. So, he must be a pretty smart guy. Don't get me wrong. He's got an MBA. He's married into greater wealth. He's upgraded his wealth and wife. Not very loyal. But that's not he's ambitious. He's ambitious and he wants to climb to the top. And he's using his skills there to avoid topics he doesn't like. So jumping back to the article here. The Courier Mail began making inquiries about the issue on Friday. And later that afternoon, it is understood the man received correspondence from his employer, Wellcon Technologies, informing him his suspension had been lifted and he could return to work today. Oh, fantastic. However, the man had already taken on a short-term job elsewhere. Wellcon failed to return calls yesterday. Good on him. Good on him. I hope he tells him to go to hell and then, does them, gets a payout. Go, no, guys, you got to pay me out, redundancy, or I'll take you to fair work. There's no suggestion Mr. Shorten had anything to do with the suspension. His office would not comment yesterday. Well, yeah, obviously not. That's not the issue. The issue is he's using his skills as to steer away conversation from topics he doesn't prefer. He's using those skills. It's not that they're putting pressure on it. In a statement to the Courier Mail, Gladstone Port Corporation said the man's employment had not been terminated. However, after repeated requests, it failed to explain why his pass stopped working on April 24 or why his desk was packed up. The individual, a subcontractor, not a Gladstone Ports Corporation employee, was not in a position to speak with any knowledge or authority on behalf of the organisation, the statement said. Well, no, he didn't. He did not. He spoke about, he asked a politician who's walking around, on his lunch break, a question. He asked him a question. It's that simple. What's wrong with that? I think the reaction from Gladstone Ports and from, his employer, Welcon, I think their reaction is blowing this completely out of proportion. It just shows a lack of understanding of the nuances. If they hadn't done anything, it would have disappeared. Sure, a few parties would have jumped on it, but, he's just asking what a whole lot of us think. What a whole lot of people think. GPC has a stakeholder and media engagement policy for the appropriate spokesperson for GPC. Yes, but he's not talking on behalf of GPC. He's asking a question for himself. So, guys, that gives us a bit of a taste of the opposition leader here in Australia. Not a full taste by any measure. It's interesting to see what the states think of him. What do you think of him, guys? Would you vote for him? Who do you think would make a better opposition leader if you wouldn't? Anyway, like, share and subscribe. Ding the bell to see my daily updates, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye for now.